in there like that. Okay. Now I'm not going to shape it either right now. I'll give it a little bit of a shape, but I'm not going to do my final shaping until after I do the rim here. So I'm going to come up, get this little boat out. Again, the shape's really going to be up to you, whatever shape you're going for. I do want this to be about 3.5 inches across, because if you keep, unless you're making it particular for something, if you keep it about a 3¼ inch across, that way if you always measure it to that size, then you can put that aside and you can make about 10-15 lids. And if the lid doesn't look good on that one, it doesn't matter. Your next one's gonna be 3.5 or 3¼ 3¼ So I always try to keep the lids about the same size, so that way I can use all the extra lids that I have laying around my studio. I got boxes of those. So get the water out. Then you want to go back with some kind of corner on something. So we got this right here. Usually a piece of wood is good. It doesn't have to be necessarily this size. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center. So I found the center right there. I'm going to put my left hand on the inside. My right hand, I'm going to hold this. Try to find something a little bit smaller than this. Usually my wooden rib tool has a corner on it, and I don't know where.
The one of these plastic ones have?
No.
Right there? No?
I don't think that's strong. Actually, that might work right there. Okay, so find the corner here, and then you're just going to, underneath, you're going to hook it. And you're just going to slowly push down. And remember, push down about at least 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch down in there. It doesn't need to be that wide of a flange on there, so I'll go back and I'll cut that off. I don't worry about it dropping in there. I can get it later. Go back and compress the rim and kind of fatten it up just a little bit. I'll use this little piece of metal here. Really, again, it's just anything you can find to just make that nice and sharp and clean. Bring this back up so it's a little bit more, especially for if you're making a teapot. Now, if you're just making like a cookie jar or something, you can leave this kind of flared out. But if you're making a teapot or anything that you might be tipping to get something out of, you're going to want that lid to be locked in there. So you're going to want this lid, when it locks in there, if you forget to hold it, it shifts and doesn't fall off. Go back with your finger tool there, put a couple fancy lines in there. Calipers. So we need to measure, okay, the width of that. So what I'm measuring is I'm measuring from
the inside,
this point right here to this point right here. Okay, so you can measure the outside. Now, measuring this way or this way, it depends on the type of lid you're going to make. Okay, so I'm going to make both lids. So the first lid I'm going to make, I'm going to need the calipers like this, because I'm going to measure. This is going to be thrown on the wheel, and I'm going to be measuring like this. Okay? Yeah, look at that. It's perfect. I'll just use that one. So what I'm doing is and always measure it while it's spinning. And what I'm doing is I'm looking over here, I'm looking there, I'm making sure that it's. Now this lid right here, okay, I'm going to do like that as well. This one right here, you can do. You can measure it this way, but I can't do that on this one. Okay, so I definitely want to
because of the
handle there. So measure across. If anything I want to air bigger, I can always trim it. Okay, you don't want to air too small, because then you have to get it absolutely perfect. So these lock pretty nice. What I usually do is if I'm throwing, mark it, just mark it with a pencil somewhere. Mark it on a piece of paper. The good part about this is if you mark this in your folder, you know, she comes over and this is her lid. Doesn't matter if she makes that lid today, tomorrow, 6 months from now, that is still the size that this thing's going to need for a lid once it's fired. This could be fired and done. She's walking away from the glaze, everything's happy, she just dropped her lid and broke it. that's the mark she needs for this one right here. It will always be that size because you measured it at this point. If it drops, double check it.
I know.
Did that go there? It's not mine. Come on. Alright, so we get rid of this. Okay, so the first one's just going to be a simple bowl that we're going to make. So it doesn't need to be that much of a clay. This will be the dome lid. This one we're actually going to throw a knob on once it's leather hard. So all you need to do here is just make a little bowl. I leave it thick, so leave it a good 1/2 inch thick at the bottom there. I don't need any of that clay there, so I'll go ahead and pull that out. Make one pass. Check it with my calipers. See, that's a little bit big. So I don't want a really tall dome lid. Some people may, some people don't. I mean, that's really up to you. So I'm going to push this out so it gets a little wider. I don't want it to be that tall, so I'll cut that down. And again, I know that this is thicker than I need it, so I'm going to leave it a little bit wider than I need it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good right there, because this right here, that's how wide, that's where I'm going to trim it down to right there. Okay, so I know that it's good. I could bring this in just a little bit if you want to. If you want to make it perfect, then you just bring it in until you actually hit side to side. But I always leave it just a little bit wider so I can trim it. Also, if I aired a little bit on that, and I measured a little bit small, this will still fit. But I like to get in there and you'll see when I do that, I like to really get in there and trim it. Don't worry about all that extra. You can cut it off now, you can cut it off later. It really doesn't matter. It's going to be a nice, solid, thick lid to this, so you have a lot of trimming on it. So this one's going to dome over. We'll put a lid on that later. That's the easy lid. I don't know if you guys have thrown these guys before. So now we're going to make that one right there. So use a little bit extra clay. Again, you can always trim the clay off. You can't add it. Okay, so center it up. Then you're going to flatten this out, probably about 1 inch thick. Make yourself a little hockey puck. Press it right there. I'm going to check where we're at. That's how wide I need to be. So as long as I'm there, on this one you're going to make it bigger than you need because you're going to trim it later to the size you need. Now the fun part. So you come over, make a line about 1 inch across. So you want an inch, about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches there. Take your sponge. You're going to push down. So it's about 3/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch thick, and you're going to push out. Again, plenty size, plenty big. That's how big my lid's going to be after I'm finished with it. But I want to keep this about 3/8 of an inch thick. Okay, I don't want to go really thin with this. I want to be able to trim it. Now take your left hand, put it here, put your right hand here, and you're going to bring this up and squeeze underneath. Lots of water to create the knob on that. Finger goes underneath, and push down and bring it out. That sponge underneath there, pinch it, bring it up. And then again, your handy dandy finger tool there, get that baby in there. Now you go back with your calipers. You mark where you need. Now what you do with these is, if it's there, obviously if it's hitting there but not there, you just keep going until it hits on both sides. That's the size I need right there. So I'm going to cut a little bit on the outside of that, because again, you can always trim. You can always make this smaller, you can't make it bigger. I'm going to come underneath, really get that rim picked up a little bit. This is going to eliminate a lot of stuff. When I go to take this off the wheel, I'm not going to have that big rim flat to the wheel here and make it really hard for me to take off. I can also get underneath and clean this up. And I know I'm going to trim some off, so I'm just going to lay it back down flat. grab it, lightly set it down. I'm not too worried about it if it gets a little off there because I can straighten it later. Okay, so that's how you throw the two different rims. Now we'll trim them and actually put them together. Dry that all off. I'm not going to go over trimming the bottom of this, but what I'll do is, first thing I'll check that out. So obviously I need to trim that smaller. So I'm going to take this. There's a few ways you can trim this. The easiest way I found, you just turn over like this. Create that little suction cup. Remember, make sure that it is nice and leather hard when you do this. And I do not have my trimming tool. You got me your trimming tool? Surprise me, anyone you got there. Make it a good one so you don't screw it up for me. This is all on you. No pressure.
Is that one too small?
No, that's good. No, that's fine. Okay, so if you don't feel comfortable doing this because you spent a long time making this lid, then put some clay around it. Okay, I feel comfortable doing it and not too worried about it. So I'm going to trim the lid first, clean up the bottom. I don't mind the lid being a little bit thick, so I'm not going to trim it too thin. I'm just going to make it nice and clean on the bottom. And this is 1 and 2 of probably 6 lids I'm going to show you guys how to make this semester. So just back and forth. And then I know that I don't need to keep this measurement anymore because I've already got it. So now I can come in here and check this right there. Put it on top here. Mark it. If I see the lines there and there. So now I can trim into that line. What's nice about leaving it up on the handle and trimming it like this is I can take this trimming tool and trim all the way underneath. And I can get a nice round edge on it. You want to give yourself about 1/8 of an inch all the way around extra. You don't want this fitting nice and snug and tight. That's the last thing we want. We want to be able to glaze that, and that glaze is going to take up a 1/16 of an inch all the way around. So that's a little bit, so it's about 1/8 of an inch on both sides there. That's good there. Then you can check it. Just set that on there. Okay, we got some good play. Pop that off. So I got some good play there because by the time the glaze gets on here and the glaze gets on there, there's going to be about 1/8 of an, or about 1/16 of an inch all the way around. So that's going to give me enough play right there to what I need. We're actually glazing because I'm going to glaze the side of this. I'm going to glaze this whole entire thing, and I'm only going to clean the bottom. So while it looks like there's a lot of gap there, there's going to be, that's not much when you consider that the glaze is going to fill in a lot of that. So that's one lid. Center this one. Let's check this one first. That one's too tight, so I'll go ahead and center it straight up and down like this first. I'm going to trim off some of this just to make it fit a little bit looser. This is where, you know, we talked about it being a little bit thicker of a piece. Now I'm going to trim it down to a lot thinner of a piece. Okay, so I got some good play in there. Trim this nice and round. Give it some of the weight, but I don't want to make this too thin because we're going to throw a knob on it. It is. I love trimming. It really is.
It's like chocolate.
Really. This is why, like especially with like your pieces, when it should trim off just like this. Nothing should stick to the tool. It should just, and you should be able to trim where little paper thin shavings are coming off of that. And it should just be like that. Nothing should be chunked up.
Makes me happy.
I guess a better example would be like chocolate. If you're just kind of grating chocolate, because it trims up like that. Right like that. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get the top of this a little wet.
I was having an issue while trimming where my tool was chattering up and down on the leaves. What's
That's
the deal?
that could be a few things. One, when you threw it, there could be a twist in the piece, and there's really no way to get rid of that except for to hold it really, really close, or your tool cannot be that sharp. So if your tool's not that sharp, Is it right now that you had that problem, or just before? Just in general?
In general.
Okay, so next time you do that, I'll check it out, because sometimes if the piece, when you're centering it, you didn't wedge it up and there's actually a ripple inside the wall of the piece, you're not really ever going to get rid of it. You have to have a really sharp tool and you have to spin it really, really fast. So, score that up. Get yourself a little ball of clay.
And we can throw whatever top we want
Yeah.
for it, because I'm not. I don't know
Why, what's wrong with this? No, you got to throw one. Don't put a handle on there. Is that what you're asking? Can we just throw a coil handle?
Oh yeah, I guess we can.
No.
I'm like,
Oh, whichever lid? Yeah.
Yeah,
no.
I'm
Yeah.
throwing that one, not that one.
Oh, I thought you meant like this actual knob. I was like, yeah, whatever shape you want. So put that on there. Lots of water. And the first thing's going to be compressed down. You want to get that
Get it in
seal
there.
on. So my left hand is kind of pinching it. My right hand's pushing down because I don't want this to smear all over it. So you're basically going to center this little ball of clay right here on top of this dome. Before I get fancy with it, I'll come in and trim it up. Use whatever you want for that. And then this part is just the same as the other one. We're just going to pinch underneath, bring that up. Push down. I do that a couple times just so I can get it nice and clean. Lots of water on this at this point. Let's go back with anything flat. You can trim. I'm just trying to take off some of the moisture there so it doesn't soak in. Tap, and that will sit right in there like that right there. So this really should be a little bit less of a dome. It would fit that a lot better, but I'm not worried about aesthetics right now. It's more just how to do it. I would usually probably let this trim down. I'll probably cut maybe about a quarter of an inch off so it sits down there a lot better, because I don't like the way it domes up too much. Because even what you want to do is you want to follow this angle right here, and right here it goes boom and then bumps back up. So this right here, it should be a nice dome. So if I were to bring arch a piece of metal over this would be too big right here.
Yeah, right now it looks like an ice cream.
Yeah.
Little.
So I would lower that down. So I will actually lower that down a little bit.
To trim it, or you put it in this way?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just turn this over like this,
Right, and then trim it off.
and then just take off,
Yeah.
maybe a quarter of an inch or so. Or put it inside one of the trimming trucks that we're gonna use right now. All right, so have you guys seen how to do closed forms like this before?
No.
Okay, so I'll show you that, because what I'm gonna do with this one, I'm gonna show you really quick how to throw a bottle. I'm not gonna go over trimming a bottle. Well, actually I will. I'll show you guys how to trim it too. And then what I did was I threw a couple of long spouts here, so I'm gonna take these spouts, cut them, and attach them to here, so that the bottle goes in like this, and then there's a little spout coming out, which you could throw. It'll be a lot harder to throw in one part than in two parts like that. And again, the amount of clay doesn't really matter. It's really up to you. Got me a couple air bubbles in there because I slapped that clay together.
Hear them or see them or feel them?
I can feel them in there.
Mm.
But I'm not worried about it. Alright, so again, the shape is irrelevant here. Whatever shape you want to put this thing into, that's up to you. So you can pull this up, and you don't have to really leave it thick or anything at the top. There's the air bubble.
Oh, yeah.
Get rid of that one. but you don't want to pull it paper thin. So I'm probably going to go just a little bit under a 1/4 of an inch with this. Give it a little shape here. Push out, and I'm going to try to keep this as narrow as possible up top here. So push out. And if you guys if it gets too thin in here, you can always reverse throw and throw that clay back down. So just like you're pulling up, you pinch and you push down and the clay fills back in the thinner areas. Get all the water out of there. I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to keep it out at a little cone shape. I'm going to keep collaring this in. So right here it's a little thin, so I'm going to take this clay and I'm just going to push it down in there. That way it doesn't collapse on it. Lots of water on the outside, not that much on the inside. Now, even though I want to collar in right here, I'm going to start down here with my hands on it. And then right about here, I'll start pushing in a little bit, and a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Because if I start right where I want to start collaring in, what's going to happen is I'm going to create a little ledge, and then it's going to drop in. So I slowly keep pushing this in until it gets just about the size I can get my finger down in there. I'll reach down in there and pull it so it's not so thick, but I do want to leave it a good 1/4 of an inch thick. Actually, well, there's your bottle demo right there. We're going to close it up though, but to make the bottle, same thing. You're just going to come like this, slowly come, start here, because if I start here and push in and then come up, it's going to collapse. I want to have my hands right on here so that it's gradually coming in. Gradually coming in. And you're going to use these 6 points again. So whether it's in knuckles like this, or you're bending your finger using these 3 right here and these 3. And that way it allows your fingers to kind of overlap each other like this, so you can get pretty small with this. I like the bottles to really be no thicker than your finger. So the bottle openings right here. So you reach it down in there, and that way you can give it one pull, make it a little bit thinner, and then just flare it out a little bit at the top there. Okay, so that's how I kind of want your bottles to be. I want them to be no thicker than that. I don't want these big bottlenecks on them. Now, to make the closed form, you keep doing it. We're just going to go ahead and get rid of some of this. Bring that in. Pinch it off. And then I'm just going to keep bringing this together. And this is all going to be solid here. And then I'll just squeeze it and let it pinch off.
Oh, wow.
Squeeze it and let it pinch off. And what I'm doing is I'm really getting that clay twisted in tight right here. Just squeeze the clay until it stops spinning, let it twist. And then go back with your metal rib tool or wooden rib tool, and I'm going to start here and I'm going to push up. Hopefully this isn't flat because those air bubbles are horrible right now. But, okay, so now we got the air trapped inside there. Now we can get in there and really flatten it. Just going to slowly push down, pushing down on the center right here. Now, there will be a time where you get too far and you'll actually push it through and that air will just pop out of there. So there's that happy, hey, well, this looks really good. I should try one more. That's where you always screw up. Whenever you say, I'm just going to try it one more. I'm going here, but what's nice about this is you can really get in there, as long as you push slow. So I'm going really slow with this. You can create some nice flat areas right here. And areas you really can't get if you're throwing a one-piece bottle. Now, you want to chance it and go a little bit, since we got the idea there. If you want to chance it and go a little bit flatter with it, take your needle tool.
I'll check the depth.
Where did I put my needle?
It's right there, in your clay right there.
Oh. So if you want this to go flatter, poke a little hole.
Oh, let the air?
Let the air out.
Oh.
And now you can actually go flatter, and then, but then you gotta get to that point where, okay, now am I too flat? And if I dried this up, if I set it with the blow dryer, I could keep doing this until that's just perfectly flat there. So if you want to create something that's flat there, round here, because this is all thick, so I'm going to trim all that off later. Because again, I'm not really worried about the shape here. I probably made this a lot rounder, but this was more how do you flatten that out than how do you create a nice shape. But I will trim that and take it off and show you what it looks like when it's all trimmed up. Alright, so then, has anybody ever used a trimming chuck? You guys all used those before?
Yeah.
Because if you have to trim something that's round on the bottle, whether it's a bottle or something like that, I'm going to trim where I can't turn that over because this is round right here. Center the trimming chuck on the wheel. And if you don't have the fancy pippin grip, you got to do it by hand. So, not everybody's a baller out there getting Giffy grips. So.
My husband's good for something.
Hey.
They gotta be.
I was gonna say he's the one.
Yeah.
Not any of us.
He was saying it was you.
Yeah.
The baller.
Yes, let's put some clay around there. I'm gonna do overdue my sponge, but if you just get this wet here, just put a couple pieces of clay in, and I haven't even checked to see the size, but if you put this clay on here without the water, it won't stick. So now I can center this. Now I can get in there and trim that, and I don't have to worry about messing up my rim or messing up my top.
How thick is it?
How thick is this bottle? I mean, this piece?
Yeah.
Maybe 1/4 of an inch thick. The bottom's a little bit thicker because I like to trim a nice, decent foot on it.
Mm-hmm.
So see, this thing's got a little chattering going on right here.
Mm.
I don't think this is the clay, so I think it's just my tool either isn't sharp enough or I'm not holding my hand sharp enough. So I'll spin a little faster. There you go. You can usually get rid of it if you just spin it a little faster. And that hole I put in the bottom, one thing before I forget, you have to put a hole in the bottom of these, because if you leave that like that for the entire weekend, it's gonna pop. It's gonna create air inside, it's gonna create steam, it's gonna get a little humid.
Wait, didn't you put the hole in the top?
I put the hole in the top at the end, but if you keep this completely solid and you don't put that hole because you like the shape,
Okay.
you have to put a hole, once you, just somewhere in it before you leave for the night, poke a hole in there.
At least one, huh?
Yeah, just one little tiny hole, just a needle tool. Doesn't need to be crazy, but if you don't do that, it will create a hole for you by the time you get back.
Mm.
Even if you cover it up with plastic. I do enjoy trimming, I tell you.
Mm-hmm. So satisfying until you poke through.
Till you trim it too far. And then always go over it with your finger. Always smooth that out. I don't like this little bump right there, so I'm gonna get rid of that.
I need to do that too. Mine's
That's why it's so important just to wait to trim it until it's ready. And you get nice and clean. Pop that off there. We'll trim. And the bottles are the same way. Now the bottle, since I know it's going to fit down in there like that, I don't need the clay. Okay, because I can just put that in there. You know, if anything, you can put a little bit of water on here. But as long as you get a chuck that will hold, you know, 1/4 of the bottle down underneath, you don't need to put the clay down there because it will get pretty tight in there. I'm not going to trim this whole thing. I just want to show you guys that this is how you use the trimming truck to trim the bottle. And we got some tall ones over there because some of these bottles are going to be fairly tall. You just want to make sure that obviously it doesn't hit there. So I'll trim this later. Just give it a little pop, it comes out. These little pieces here, make sure those don't get in the clay. Now we'll construct a bottle. So we know how to make the lid, we know how to make the bottle. Now we'll make this guy right here. this has definitely got to be nice and leather hard before you try this stuff here. Now I'm not going to trim too much here because I don't want to get too thin. I'll trim more of it when I actually get the neck put on there. So I'm going to I'll put this one on. The same thing like before, I'm going to turn it over upside down. Just kind of center it here.
Yeah.
All I'm going to do here is just mark it. And we get a nice straight line. Don't stop around. So all I'm doing here is just cutting them so my metal rip tool so I get a nice, fairly straight cut.
I was like, oh no, it's not
What
coming
did you
out.
use to throw it so tall and skinny?
I'll throw one for you real quick. This. Slip it on there.
Question.
What's that?
That was a good question.
Yes, that was a good question. Because again, I forget things, guys, so I forget to tell you guys things.
You use the slip brush?
So this, all I'm really trying to do is get the bottom of the center, just like I did with the goblets. I'm not worried about the top right now.
No, I think I pushed down.
This is kind of like what we did with the top of the handle. Let's see how everything kind of ties in. Take this get in there and score it up. Can start with this center here, and then get that center there. And just like we did with the goblet, we're going to tie this in. So once you guys learn how to make these little containers, the goblets, all these little spouts, a teapot is so easy to do. Teapot's intimidating because when you look at it, there's a ton of stuff. But once you know how to make all the parts separately, it's very easy to make a teapot. It's very easy to make a well-functioning teapot. Now you see that little wobble right there? Yeah. Showed a few of you guys how to get rid of that. Do you remember? You remember, huh? You stop the wheel. Wobble's gone. Do not tell the other teachers. That's something that only you guys are going to learn. Watch this.
Then it becomes creative
Wobble,
art.
no wobble. No wobble.
That's great.
Yeah, so unless somebody has one of these at their house, they're not going to see it's wobbly. So I'd say 90% of the stuff at your house, you put on this wheel, it's going to wobble. But you can sit there and get real specific about it. But again, if you just stop the wheel and not hand it to somebody who has a wheel, you'll be good. So I'm going to come in here with my wooden rib tool, just slowly push down, trim a little bit off. But what I'm really trying to do is get some pressure on there to get that seam nice and sealed.
Seamless.
Now, it's almost impossible to throw without it being really, really thick, or without you having to sit there with a blow dryer and throw a bottle that is that shape right there. Because by the time you bring that in, it's just going to collapse 100 out of 100 times.
Wow.
Put some nice little handles on this, and it makes a nice little decorative single rows for all the guys that don't want to buy their wife's gift and grip.
Or I dream a genie bottle.
Go cheap and buy little- or just something like that. This makes nice too. You can do a little handle here with a little spout coming out right here. So, What were we gonna do? Oh, the tall. I'll show you guys how to throw a tall neck on the bottle.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, we really need this. Oh.
We got enough. Yeah. I'll throw a little tiny base with a big tall neck on it here. How about that? Okay, so center it up. Hopefully this clay doesn't have the air bubbles in it. What's that? Not too concerned about the shape. We'll put a little boom there. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to keep pulling this up so I can't reach my hand down in there. This will be a very small bottle because we want to. This whole point of this is just how do we throw a big tall cylinder like that. Okay, so I'm going to bring it in. And reach down there as far as I can. B-Mix is perfect. B-Mix, Vegas Buff, anything with very little sand in it is really good for throwing spouts. You start getting into Hopkins White, it gets grainy, and that's when it starts to tear on you. So when you throw the spouts, okay, you notice when you guys start doing this, the top usually gets wobbly. So you can throw it just one-handed like this, and you can hold on to the spout and kind of grip it. And slowly bring it up like that. You put your hands like this, where it's hitting the top, and that way it stays. But even at that, eventually you're going to get to the point where you can't reach the top. Come up like that. And then take your hands off slow, or it wobbles. And then when you get to that point where it's just too tall to reach at the top, too tall to reach at the bottom, push that down in there. Mine doesn't have that on there, so you gotta be careful with that. Push that in there. I'm just gonna throw it right up against it. And then you're gonna bring that up. So I'm raising the tool and I'm raising my hand at the same time. And you just throw right up with that tool in there. That's going to hold it nice and straight for you.
Wow.
And then when it gets to this point right here, you just hold on to the top, squeeze the bottom.
Yeah, we need a drink.
Wow. The main thing is just to support the top.
Yeah,
when
you
get
guys,
to the,
if you don't hold on to the top with your left hand or your opposite hand, whatever it is, that thing will be all over the place.
yeah, like that.
It'd go like
And now
that.
it's got a nice twist.
Little Dr. Seuss thing going on.
Very Seussical. That's cool.
Yeah, really cool candles. So, anyways, that's how you make really tall thin ones. That's really cool. All right. All right. So you guys got your bottle demo. You got your lid demo. You got your
Closed.
closed form demo. Got all kinds of demos. Pick something and make it. All right.